Hello and welcome everyone to the Difference Makers Show. I am really glad you're here today. We have two expert guests addressing the topic, what nonprofit leaders need to know in order to succeed. And we have a great wingman for you, Bill Graham, who's coming to you from quite a distance. So I want to first let you know that this is a special live streaming program. And in order for you to get the most out of it, whether you're listening live or after the show, I would like you to type in your name and where you're hanging out from in the comments stream on this page. I'd also like you to feel free to write questions or make comments during the program, and we'll do our best to answer them. This is just for you. So now, without further ado, let me officially give you a little bio of our guests. We have with us Hugh Ballou, and Hugh, I'm going to put you on full screen so they can see your face. Hugh is coming to us as the Transformational Leadership Strategist, and he's the President of SynerVision International. He spent over 40 years having conducting experience, and there's a lot of relationships you're going to learn about between conducting an orchestra and conducting a nonprofit. He's going to bring you some great tips from all of his wealth of experience. And joining us also is Russell Dennis, who is called a possibility engineer of R.D. Dennis Enterprises, and he helps nonprofits raise more money and attract more support, which all of us need. He has an 11-year U.S. Air Force history as a veteran and 11 years of community and economic development experience. That's just a shortened version of their bios. Without further ado, let's welcome each of them, and also Bill Graham, our wingman. So Russ, do you want to tell us where you're hanging out from? Welcome.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me here. I'm in Aurora, Colorado, just southeast of Denver, Colorado, out in the Mountain West.
It's beautiful, and it looks great from where you are sitting too. Very scenic.
We've got lots of sunshine here today. It's been a little colder than normal, but we've got a little sunshine.
It's great. It looks nice. And Hugh, can you tell us where you are coming to us from?
I'm from the mountains, the old mountains. They're not young like where Russell lives in Denver. We're in the Appalachians, central western Virginia, called Lynchburg.
Wow. And I'm going to include Bill Graham, who's being kind enough to come into us today. And Bill, tell us where you're coming in from.
Hi guys, I'm joining from Innisfil, Ontario in Canada. Right beside Lake Simcoe, and we're enjoying a cool but very colorful and wonderful fall right now. So it's my pleasure to help with the show today, and I'm really looking to hear what Hugh and Russell have to say.
Thank you. And I'm coming from Chicago. So without further ado, I'm going to start asking both of you, tell us a little bit about your stories. We'll start with Hugh this time. What drove you to be able to want to help nonprofits? How did you get to where you are right now? So let's turn to Hugh.
I served mega churches for 40 years as a music director. So that's middle management. And middle management, I affect people all the way around. So a big part of what churches do is worship together, and music is a big part of that. And I discovered that 10% of my job was music. The other percent was organizational development. I had to get volunteer people together. And so the churches I served had a counseling center, and people could get the therapy they needed, whether they had the money or not. So I founded SynerVision as the brand, and Russell and I both overlap SynerVision Leadership. That entity we work with, and they come to the table, and they may not have enough money to hire expensive consultants. So we have alternatives. We're known as Wayfinders. So my story is I took crisis organizations and built harmony through choirs, through orchestras, through the singing and working together. And I teach leaders in nonprofit and business orchestrate excellence by being the leader, the influencer. And really, Lynn, we've mostly learned leadership wrong, and we've inherited some bad situations. So Russ and I synergize on we've got a different way to relate to people. So my story has been a long one, but basically I've repositioned all the things that a musical conductor knows, conducting transformation in an organization in a non-musical setting.
Wow. It's a beautiful analogy, orchestrating excellence. I love that. Thank you, Hugh. So Russell, how did you get connected with Hugh? And tell us just a little bit about your story.
Well, Hugh and I met at a business growth conference in 2012 for CEO Space International. At the time, I was working with veterans. And I stumbled into the nonprofit world purely by accident by going to work for a Native American tribe that a friend of mine was a member of. And that was a baptism by fire as I started looking at all sorts of human needs from one spectrum to the other. And had people standing in front of me. So it wasn't just a number or a case. There are real people who I got to know, and I knew everything about them. And so that was my journey in the nonprofit world. And I spent time with child development services. So I took a job out here in Denver to go to work for the Internal Revenue Service as an auditor in the Small Business Self-Employed Division. Did that for a few years, had some health challenges. When I bounced back, I decided to go back into working to make the world a better place because it just resonated with me.
Sure. Well, I could definitely understand that. So I love the fact that you both work together helping nonprofits. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty now, the important details, the steps that you feel are both critical for nonprofits to know in order to succeed. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Hugh, and those listening, feel free to type in your questions as we move along.
As a conductor, we step in front of a choir or an orchestra. We've got a roadmap, which is called a piece of music. Everybody in the culture knows what to do, when to do, how to do. And so they know how to be engaged. We tend to run our organizations without the roadmap. So people are trying to fly blind and they run into each other. Or we want to do too many things and too many things cancel each other out. So we've got a lot of tactics in mind and we're just going to wing it. And that's a recipe for design. So we start with a really strong strategy. And in the strategy, where we're going, and we know the skills and competencies we need on our teams. So before we go recruiting teams or hiring staff or getting volunteers, the leader needs to understand what they need to learn to be able to engage those people. I would say 90% of the boards of directors I see for nonprofits don't function because the leader does too much and they don't ask enough of people who want to serve as leaders in the charity. So we need a roadmap where we're going. We need to work on our skills. We need to put the very best people in place. And then we need to have a money plan. We call it nonprofit, and that's a lie. It's a tax-exempt, for-purpose enterprise. We're creating value for people. And so we have to install good business principles and manage the money. And then the last thing, we think we're going to figure it out by ourselves. Russ and I serve as confidential advisor for leaders, and we can't figure it out ourselves. You can eventually, but if you look at the most successful people in the world, they have sometimes multiple, they at least have one coach, sometimes multiples. So we serve as advisors to leaders, helping them shorten the cycle and lowering the failure rate by giving them advice that we've learned over multiple years in doing this.
Well, that's a very good answer. And I like the fact that you're working on a roadmap together. So how do you divide up your responsibilities?
We work separately, we work together. And Russ is licensed as a Wayfinder in Synervision because he's studied our methodologies and he can teach it. You know, it's a case-by-case basis. And I'm going to throw it to Russ because he's, not only is he better looking, he's smarter.
Okay, Russ, we're turning over to you. Would you answer?
Well,
yeah, go, the pressure's on. What are important steps that you feel you're addressing with nonprofits to help them succeed?
Well, it really gets to looking at what you're good at and what your core competencies are, and really stepping back and taking a look at what you have, what you don't have, what you could use, and who you want to reach. So, moving into an area where you're successful is 4 basic steps, but there are a lot of moving parts in those steps. And I call them 4 steps to building a high-performance nonprofit. The first is to build a good, solid foundation. And that's where you look at bringing the values, visions, mission, and all of those things together. You look at the people, who's on your team, you inventory your assets, all of the knowledge and the skills that you have. and look at who you want to serve and what it is you're trying to do. So building the foundation's more than an academic exercise, to be sure. There are a lot of moving parts. The second piece is, once you set that frame, is to build effective action plans. And the third thing you do is create systems to measure everything you do. And the fourth piece is to communicate the value that you bring to all of the audiences who come in contact with you.
Wow, that's a mouthful, and you really covered a lot there. Each of these areas, I could tell you could spend even an hour on. Each of these, the building the foundation, the team. I know myself in working with different nonprofits that, as Hugh mentioned, sometimes you have one person wanting to do everything, and then others get frustrated along the way. So I'm going to ask you both to go a little deeper on this question, because we have others, but I think it's really important what you just mentioned, both of you, the 4 steps, how you build that solid foundation, how you address team competency. How do you know if someone's really good? So let's just start with that first question. We can go a little deeper on the foundation. We'll go back to Hugh, and then we'll come back to you, Russ. How do you know define the right people?
Russ and I work together through SynerVision, but we both have our own enterprises. And Russ has his own intellectual property, which is very good. And there's a synergy in how he does it and how I do it. But there's a 4-step intake process with Synervision Leadership Foundation. We want to validate the competency. We don't just look at their resume and take it for granted. We do a background check. We make sure that they say they've got a degree. They've got a degree. We want to make sure they said they worked a place, that they actually did that. People tend to be optimistic, shall we say, in promoting themselves.
Right.
And so onboarding people, you do a background check for the competency, because there's a lot of theft with people that are inside nonprofits, because we let our guard down because they're nice people, but they write checks to themselves if they have the checkbook. So we want to make sure the people there, and then we want to make sure that they're very clear on what we want them to do. They have the skills to do this and this. That's their role and responsibility. And then they fit our culture. We have very distinct cultures, and we're creating very distinct value. We need people that fit, or they're going to be a pain the rest of the time they're there. And then lastly, we want to define what we want them to do over a period of time. It's expectations. So that's a 4-pillar approach. And when you get through that, it's really evident whether the person can do it or not. So the competency is the skill and the background and experience, but by the time you get through it, they've demonstrated they can actually function inside your organization, which is the important part.
Exactly. Russ, do you want to add to that as far as what you feel is important for people to know in the nonprofit strategy building, really?
Well, I have tools that I use in addition to the tools that we have at SynerVision to really drill down and find out what people want out of an experience with the nonprofit they're serving. And those are the same questions. They're very similar. You ask the same question of board members, servant leaders, and staff people, and there's other due diligence tools. But you also want to inventory assets, and people are an asset. And there are a couple of instruments that I use to help with that. One is what I call a personal purpose questionnaire. And it asks some deep questions about who the people are, what they want out of their experience, what they're bringing to the nonprofit, to look at how those align with the entity itself. And then I give each person on the leadership team another instrument called an entity purpose questionnaire. And with this instrument, I get the perspective on what each person in the leadership role thinks the nonprofit is there to do. And so we check these. We can check, make sure that we've got alignment, and that's one of the tools. And I have a few more detailed questions for bringing people on board. But those help me get at the information to try to find out if people are actually aligned with the organization.
No, those are excellent wisdom bits that you both are sharing. So many nonprofits are just used to doing some things the same way over and over. So I'm going to ask you, how do you recommend that these nonprofits who need help inform their prospective members of their story? How do they communicate their value? Hugh, would you
contact Lynn Sanders?
That's right. We do share their stories. We each have our own roles, but in addition to what you do, and both of you are, I can see how there's just so much importance to this. A friend of mine, a new friend, recently contacted me with having a nonprofit, and he's having to move on and from a distance and have others take over for him. So I think this next question is important about communicating value and making sure that a team is working together in synergy. SynerVision is such a great name. So in addition to working with my company and telling stories, what else do you do to help your nonprofit leaders communicate their value? There's a lot of different ways you can do that.
Let's let Russ go first this time.
All right, Russ, we'll let you go first now, Russ.
Well, value is a little bit different. Value is in the eye of the beholder. So you have volunteers, for example, working with an organization, and you have donors. There are different things that they want out of the experience. And a good friend of ours, Daniel Olivo, talks about creating an experience for donors. It's important to create an experience for everybody that your organization touches. So the reasons that different groups of people will work with you are different. And so a part of what we look at is what motivates people. We have ways to measure what motivates them, what they're looking for, what resonates with them. And we're trying to have the right message with the right language for people. And there are different tools that we use to do that, to make sure that people are talking to others in terms that are important to them. So you've got a lot of different customers with a for-purpose enterprise. You've got, so everyone's a little bit different. So I actually have a customer profile. You do one on every different segment. So it's a little bit of work. It's a little bit of work, but it's a short instrument just to capture the very basic information. But you have to understand where you sit, and the experience you provide to each audience is what's valuable to them. Because a lot of times we forget it's not about us, it's about the other people.
That's right. I love the fact that you're using strategic tools, and either of you can address this. You're talking about different audiences, which is so true. You have the people working within the nonprofit, and then you have your volunteers, you have your supporters, and prospective supporters. So could you divulge some of your tools? Are they survey forms, or what type of tools do you both use to pull out the information so you can best address each of your audiences? Can I go back to you this time, or? Sure.
I want to ditto everything that Russell said about that segmenting. I think it's important to not get hung up on tools. We need somebody in every charity to be the communications person. And if it's big enough, you'll need an internal and external communications person. We're so busy doing, we don't think about telling the story of what we've done, and preparing people for what we're going to do. And donors respond to the impact. Money follows that message. So money has ears. And what I want to flag something that Russ said, that's a key point, is it's not about us. It's about the people that we're talking to. What do they want to see happen? And if we tell the stories of the impact of our work, we want to tell those stories to people who want to see that kind of impact. And they're the people who will step up as volunteers. There are people who will step up and say, look, I can build a website for you. There are people that say, how much do you need? I want to write a check. It's the end of the year. I need a tax write-off. And so it's really, it's so important to think about what people know. And too many leaders talk about me. This is what I do. This is what I do. And people also don't know why it's important, why our work is important. So we should start, like Simon Sinek talks about in his book and his TED Talk, begin with why. And we do there are some very helpful tools. We need enough people and enough manpower, woman power to manage those tools. And sometimes we get distracted with the tools, and money and people respond to relationship. So if you want volunteers stepping up, you want people to donate, it's a direct result of relationship building.
Exactly. And we build relationships through the heart, not through the head. So as you said, you're not just talking about me, it's how do we help others, the why behind it. So let me go back to you, Russell, since we're taking turns here. So how do you recommend that you communicate the value of your message to your different audiences?
Well, you go to them on a platform that they're most likely to be at. You know, where do you meet people? You have to meet them where they are, wherever that is. And some are going to respond to direct mail. Some are going to respond to social media. And you need to do that strategically and to be out there and talk with them. It's all about having conversations and empathetic listening. And we have to talk to people a lot because there are some strong tools, very, very strong tools that Hugh has developed for the foundation that address leadership. And that's his wheelhouse. As the leaders go, so the organization goes. So the leaders really have to set the tone. And what I've discovered is that people really have no idea how much they already know or how many assets that they already have. And that's why I'm really big on inventorying assets. And people are the best asset that a nonprofit has. And, you know, so because they build the relationships and the relationships are what create the chemistry and the drive to actually accomplish things and reach out to people. So between us, we've got a ton of tools. But which ones do we use? And that's something we flesh out in our symposiums, because we start the day asking people what they want to get out of the experience, then out come the tools.
You know, you bring up a good question. I was wondering, because there's so much that you're talking about that you cover. I wondered what is your framework? How do you package your services? If you wouldn't mind addressing that for a minute. Do you have people typically go through an input session, or you have them attend a symposium or a conference call? Lead me through the process a little bit. Hugh, I'm going to go back to you.
There's a discovery session. We have standard tools, but the tools apply differently to different people. And Russ and I are the antidote to the consultant. We have different systems than the typical consultant or coach has. And it's more about understanding what people need, where their gaps are. And really, instead of giving people answers, we help people discover their own answers. And then we provide them with a process. That's why we use the word Wayfinder rather than consultant. And so there's this discovery process. And really, it's all about the people that we serve. And the more value we give to people, the more it's going to bring value to the organization that we lead. So there's this, we ask questions and we listen very carefully to the answers. And then we co-create a process and develop mutual accountabilities, because some people aren't likely to follow through, and we determine right there if this person's a good fit and they have the commitment to go to the finish line. Because some people start out real strong and they fizzle, and that's not a successful nonprofit. So I'm going to throw it to Russ and see what wisdom he has on this.
Great. And Russ, will you define a wayfinder for us? Because I didn't use that word until Hugh brought it up, because I thought it would be helpful to clarify.
Well, a wayfinder is someone who asks you enough questions to help you set a direction for yourself that you know deep down inside that you want to go. You know intuitively it's where you want to go. You're just not exactly sure how to get there. But I guarantee you that, every nonprofit is unique. They've got a unique relationship with their audiences, and they know what those people need. They get to know them intimately. So they have a lot of genius. They have superpowers that they may not be aware of. And they know how to serve people that they want to reach. And so what we do is help them find that superpower, help them find that genius, help them systematize what they're already doing in a way where they're more effective at delivering what they already have.
That's terrific. How long is a typical process that you take nonprofits through?
They vary, Lynn. The intake and the strategy process takes a day. Intake day, planning day, and then a debriefing day. But realistically, it takes 90 days to comprehend and lay down the strategy and to integrate it with the action steps to go to performance on it. The most successful organizations are ones that commit to a year, because it doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly. I'm glad to hear that you really get into that detail with every client, because you're really mapping out the roadmap for their whole, for their whole organization for a lifetime. It's not just a short term. And, the time just speeds by here. So I want to move to our last question about the top tips. You've given a lot of value here, and I appreciate you both so much. What would you say would be the top tips that you would recommend a nonprofit be aware of to succeed? I'll go back to you, Russ.
I would say always remember where it is that you want to try to get people to. Remember what that ultimate impact is, and keep an eye on activities that move you in that direction. If you got activities that are pulling you away from your strengths and from that major impact that you want to make, you want to examine them and see if you need to release them, outsource them, or find something to do with them. Always, always, always work from your wheelhouse with your superpowers. And our processes will help you identify what those superpowers are. If you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 and you've got some areas where you're a 4, don't spend your time on those areas where you're a 4. Work on the areas where you're a 9 or a 10. Outsource, collaborate, or partner with a 4. Great tips.
Look where you're going to your direction, and then outsource what you're weak in so you can focus on your strengths. How about you, Hugh?
We choose to call those skills and gaps. You hire for your gaps. And just because I don't do details in my writing and editing, I'm not weak at it. It's something I prefer to do, the concept piece. And so Russ is so right. Our skill is in our expertise, feeding people, clothing people, teaching people, whatever our cause-based charity is. It's not in running a business. So the first step is realizing that you're not the jack of all trades. And you really want somebody that has the expertise to help you put this into a system that you can actually do the good. And so the first step is personal and your own skill building. Leaders always work on themselves harder than they work on their enterprise.
Would you repeat that last part? We had a little technical glitch, Hugh, and your words got stopped, frozen. Go ahead, please.
Jim Rohn used to say, work harder on yourself than you do your business. And I said, your leaders always continue to work on their skill building for more than they work on their enterprise, which is your business or your nonprofit.
Exactly. What you're saying is both you. Everything comes from the inside out. You've got to work on yourself first, and then you can work on everyone else. So before we leave, we've just like a minute or two. Would you each give us the website where people can find you, and you each have a gift that everyone can access to grow their business? Hugh, you want to tell us your link, and then we'll come to you, Russell. Where should people find you? If you want to do a screen share, we can. There we are. Beautiful.
You see the screenshot of my website?
Yes.
It's called Synervision Leadership Foundation. It's Synervision Leadership. That's synergy. That's Y-N-E-R without the Y. G-Y. Synervision. It's the synergy with a common vision. Synervision Leadership, and it says join. You can join this community for free. And if you join it for free, you get my $97 5 pillars of success that I outline those 5 pillars in this interview. So just join the community. There's a link on the welcome page that says go here, get the program. It's one I sell for $100. You get it for free if you join the community. Now, if you don't like the community, you can leave.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's great. I love the website and the bringing together of the people. Synergy plus leadership. Synervision. It's all about that. Excellent. And Russ, you also have a gift for our viewers.
I do. I have a devoted donor-based course. Let me find that, pull that up. Look for that screenshot. I just had that here.
I don't know, for some reason. Oh, there we go. We're getting.
Oh, that was Hugh's screen. Can you see my screen?
No, for some reason I'm seeing me and not you. I'm going to try again. There, great. Oh, we got the wrong image. If you want to just say it oral, verbally, you can.
Oh, there it is there. So this is this is my course platform on Thinkific, high performance nonprofits .thinkific.com. On the left, there's a Creating a Devoted Donor Base course, and that's a 3-part course on donor relations. I'm building that out into a full course, and that's where you can find my courses.
Will you repeat so the URL is high-performance-nonprofits-
.thinkific.
.thinkific?
Yes.
Thinkific.
Thinkific. Could you spell it for us? THINK? Can't read it.
Sorry to interrupt. I might recommend that maybe both Hugh and
oh, that's a good idea.
There we are.
Yeah, put Russell, put your links right in the comment, because people will come back in the future and see this as well, and we want them to be able to find you.
I'll put that, and I'll put my website in there.
Excellent idea.
Okay.
So that's great. So we've run out of time. I've really appreciated both of your help here in participating to give the most value to nonprofits. We're going to share this interview out with many nonprofit leaders and their supporters and volunteers so they can know about both of you. And just another tip for all nonprofits, I'm doing this as a video program. Video is very hot. More people are watching video than they're reading words. So I'd also recommend you consider adding video, whether you work with myself or anyone else. Video is a great tool that you can use to bring people to your website and engage with you from the heart. And so I just want to thank again, Hugh. Thank you, Hugh, very much for being here with us. And Russell, thank you so much. And Bill Graham, I really appreciate your help as our wingman today. And all of you, we all make a difference. We all continue making a difference as long as we take action and believe in ourselves. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. Go out there and show the world that you are out there to make a difference. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.